So this game has felt more pivotal than any other game in the last 6 months, and I feel that there's some context behind that. We had 75 minutes of absolutely dominant football against the title challenging team with their best starting 11. I mean, they were incredibly bullish before the game, even dismissive of our chances, and the bookies certainly didn't back us at all to win the game. And yes, look, we did capitulate and we gave away a 2-goal win. But I still think that this game proves that it's a bit of a turning point for Chelsea and we are moving in the right direction. So stick around, subscribe if you're new, and let's get right into the match. So there were a few surprises in the lineups, not massively so. Obviously, Cucurella starting at left back was a bit of a surprise. He's done a great job at right back, and fair enough, he's earned his spot completely to play this game against Arsenal. Obviously, we haven't seen him at left back that often this season. It's mainly been Colwill and splitting between Chilwell when he was fit. But Cucurella got his chance to start in that position and Colwill moved over to the centre-back. Disasi had a slight injury before the game and we didn't see him playing. And then perhaps the most important one really was the false nine. And whether it was a false nine or not, we saw Cole Palmer playing through the middle, and that was surprising. We didn't know whether Jackson was going to be fit enough, and obviously he wasn't fit enough to start the game. When he came on, I wasn't really sure if he was fit either. So that started the journey for us. We went into the game and I was watching it with the boys on the kickoff and we weren't sure how the result was going to go. We seemed like we had the weaker team and Arsenal had their strongest 11. And so you didn't necessarily expect anything out of the game. And then what happened? In the 15th minute, Sterling picks up the ball on the right hand side and whips it with his right foot towards the middle of the box. Mudryk has made a run inside into basically a number 9 position, uses his athleticism to spring up, try to get a head away, connects with the ball, and then it goes on to Saliba's arm. And look, I can understand why people don't think this is a pen, but his arm is in an unnatural position. And so you kind of have to give it there. VAR reviewed it and they rightly gave the penalty. And then Cole Palmer steps up, beats off competition from Sterling to take that penalty and slots it in the bottom left-hand corner. The whole stadium erupts. It was pandemonium at Stamford Bridge. I think we were all in shock. We didn't expect it. And look, the first half was dominant, and I don't think many Arsenal fans would disagree with that. You go in at half-time, 1-0 at home against a title-challenging Arsenal, and you think, how are we going to come out after the second half? Is it going to be more negative? Are we going to sit back? Are we going to try and absorb pressure? Well, Mudryk had other ideas. He picks the ball up on the left-hand side. He's had a conversation before the game with Tony Jimenez, the goalkeeping coach at Chelsea, who has said that David Raya loves to come off his line. And, surprise, surprise, David Raya is off his line. Mudryk puts in a ball, and he describes it himself as a bit of a half shot, half cross. I think he's looked up, and I've seen footage of it since, where he has looked up and he's noticed that there is a gap. And look, I'm taking that goal, and I'm so delighted for Mudryk because he was absolutely slated. And look, I'm going to show you a quick clip that described live how I felt about Mykhailo getting that goal.
Do you punish him?
Yes! Yes! Mykhailo Mudryk! He has done it! He's done it! You all wrote him off! You all wrote him off! And I've been waiting for this moment. You all have said that he's not good enough. Every single one of you, except that man over there, Joey. And he's just smacked it in from the left-hand side. Mykhailo Mudryk, the narrative. The narrative.
And riding that wave, riding that momentum, riding that positivity, you felt that we could score more goals. There was so much positivity in that moment. The crowd were going wild. In the kickoff, we were all going absolutely crazy. So then, Cole Palmer gets the opportunity. He sees David Raya make a mistake, a very, very loose, a very reckless pass out from the back. It blasts into him. He controls it with ease. But then he tries to go around the keeper. He goes round to his right-hand side, and that was a bit of a mistake, wasn't it? He could have shot. He could have passed it back to Conor Gallagher. There was space there. He just didn't get it away. And look, can you imagine the sliding doors moment? That goes in. The game is 3-0 around 60 minutes. Our fortunes would be completely different. And really, I think you back us then to retain the result and maybe even just keep it at 3-0 and get a clean sheet. But it didn't go that way, did it? And look, this is the turning point now where I think you do have to credit Arsenal, their players, because they did come back into the game. It was around the 75th minute when the tide did change. Their pressing from the front was very, very impressive. You saw Nketiah coming down to chase down the ball. Sanchez was panicking, and he has to take a large amount of blame for this mistake. But look, Pochettino does make him do those tactical changes. He does say to him, I want you to play out from the back. So we can't just say Sanchez is done, Sanchez is over, he needs to be dropped. Like, it's not all his fault. So look, he tries to find Enzo Fernandez. Enzo maybe is caught on his heels a bit. He had been gassed from running around up and down the pitch, where our midfield was absolutely imperious in this match. Then it goes towards Rice and Gallagher. Gallagher, again, like Enzo, was on his heels. He wasn't quick enough to get to the ball. And then Declan Rice, a former Chelsea Academy graduate, slots it from miles out. He had no right to be able to get it in the goal from there. And you really then worry about what's going to happen after that. The momentum had completely switched in Arsenal's favour, and they looked like they were the more confident and astute team. And that's the story of their goals, really. While they were amazing and they forced us to make mistakes, it was about individual errors and mistakes for us. And that was the same for their second goal as well. Two players that I really want to call out here. You've got Noni Madueke, who has just come off the bench, who should have the most legs out of our entire squad. And he's there with Cucurella. I thought when I was watching it live that Cucurella had lost his man, but he hadn't. Cucurella was following the run of Ben Wright, who was overlapping on the right-hand side. Saka cuts in, uses his left foot, and Noni could and maybe should have blocked it. And look, I think it might be harsh to blame a player who's just come off the bench and is getting acclimatised to the game. But look, he should be closing down that cross. The cross comes in from Saka. It goes all the way to the far post. And then you look at Gusto and you think, mate, you've got to follow your run there. Like, he's completely lost Trossard, who, again, is kind of underrated for Arsenal, to be honest with you. He came on and really did impact the game on that left-hand side. He comes in and does a brilliant finish through Sanchez to make it 2-2. As I say, I think there are two errors, and I think the boys are going to have to learn from that. Both of them are very young players, and I feel that Poch will be looking at the tactical analysis, as we're doing now, as you're looking on screen and seeing where the boys have lost their men here or prevented the cross. And I think Poch will have to have words with them and say, look, this cannot happen again. We need to close out games, and it comes from individuals like yourselves to stop those crosses and potentially stop the goal. That's how it finished. 2 goals in the last 15 minutes. It completely changed the overall story, which felt really like complete dominance from Chelsea for the majority of the game. So what did we learn about the performance? I'll tell you what I found the most interesting was looking at how we were going to set up before the game. As I said, we didn't really know whether it was going to be a false 9, who was going to be playing where, and how it was going to set up on the pitch. And to be fair, when we were watching it, we didn't even really know. And I love that about Pochettino. He seems to be doing stuff that's unconventional, proving that he's unpredictable. And really, in modern football, that's the way you've got to go. You see the amount of analysis, amount of data that the guys use. And we're doing that even in these videos, right? Let alone what these guys in Premier League football clubs, with everything and all that money that is on the line, they're looking at every single one of the matches and they're analysing the performances. So I like this about what Poch is doing. He's setting up the team in a unconventional way. Every week he's tweaking something, making a player move in a different direction. And you saw that with the pressing setup today. You saw Gallagher oftentimes higher than Cole Palmer. You know, he's playing in midfield. He was often the furthest forward. And that's testament to his gas, but also Pochettino's tactical sort of analysis to go, I think we can put the defence that Arsenal have under pressure. So him and Cole Palmer were pushing alongside together. Cole Palmer might have dropped in the hole to block off the pivot, but they were up there pressing. Then you had the high wingers as well. Both of them were very, very high. Sterling potentially higher than the other. And you look at the average formations, Sterling was right up there. But maybe what that indicates, if you look at the average formations, is that Sterling wasn't tracking back as much as he needed to. And maybe that's a bit of a tactical weakness that we had in that formation, and Sterling wasn't really paying attention to his instructions. I know that Pochettino has wanted to push him further on so that he's attacking, but you've got to do both sides of the game, haven't you? Especially when you compare it to people like Gallagher and Mudryk, who, if you look on the average positions, were quite deep, but really that's just because they were all over the pitch, tracking forward, tracking back, and basically putting pressure on every element of the Arsenal midfield and attack and defence. They were all over the place. It was brilliant. And overall, I think what we saw is that there's fluidity in the team. Like, there's not really like clear set positions. You saw Mudryk taking a more central position. You saw Cole Palmer pulling out wide. And again, like, every player knows that if they're in a certain phase of play, they've got to be in a certain position. And they sort of impacted play in a very, very strong way. And I think going forward, that's going to be so encouraging for Poch and the players around him. We are looking like we've got more of a tactical identity, and I love seeing that, and that's something very different for us. I think the heartbeat of our team really came from the midfield as well, and we got to shout them out. I think all three of them now are basically undroppable, but the one player that I really must call out here in terms of a key learning is Conor Gallagher. There were so many people before the season started where they were saying effectively they were happy for him to go. You know, they were ready to offload another academy player, get the profit and move on. And I just think he's proving every single one of those people wrong. I mean, in this game, 4 key passes. That was 3 more than any other Chelsea player, let alone all of the movement, the running, the tackles that he was doing. He was all over the pitch. So for me, like Cole Palmer, you know, understandably got man of the match. But Gallagher easily could have been right up there as well. So what we're learning really is that we do have an elite midfield now. The players are good enough, no matter how young they are, and they are also building connections together. But the midfield is something that we really should be very, very happy about now. Something a bit more scary is game management, and that's the next thing I want to talk about. Like, there is a bit of a dark art here about closing out games when your back is against the wall and getting results when maybe there is so much pressure from another team knocking on your door trying to get a goal in the last few minutes. And we weren't very good at that at all yesterday, and it sort of showed. I think when that 2-1 goal went in, we felt the pressure as Chelsea fans. And I think it's inexcusable for someone like Sanchez to make a loose pass in the way that he did. And again, it's inexcusable for the players around him to react as slowly as they did to that weak pass. Yes, it happened all very quickly in the game, but again, it's sort of like small movements either way could have completely changed that moment. Enzo being slightly further across, Gallagher being slightly more on his toes. But again, I don't think you can blame any of these guys. I don't think there's a harsh judgment on any of them. I think that would be really, really unfair. But Sanchez, in that moment, sometimes you just need to boot the ball forward. And again, whether that's part of your tactical identity or not, whether you want to play the ball out of the back, it doesn't really matter anymore. It's more about clearing the lines and relieving pressure that way. And yes, look, it will come back at you. But we can't keep making errors like this around the back. And I think Sanchez has been taking a lot of stick from fans all over the place. And I think while that's harsh, I can understand, just play the simple ball. And then, like, I'm not going to criticise Pochettino at all because I think he's been brilliant. I think he set the team up so well to start off this game. And we did dominate the entire game. We did dominate 75 minutes of the game. But the subs, they just didn't work. Like, Noni did miss his man there. And again, Reece coming on in an advanced position as a right winger. I wasn't sure, like, would Reece have been better in a deeper role? Would Gusto have been better as that wing role? Like, again, let him take a bit of a breather after being so gassed for the entire game. It might have been very different if we'd set up that way. But look, all of these things, like, you know, you can say in hindsight, like, the game was very, very different, wasn't it? The way that it actually flowed. And, you know, if we close out the game and it does finish 2-1, those subs look like they're great subs. And then I also want to talk about our forward line. I think Pochettino, after that setup and the way that we performed in that first half, might end up playing more often than not this false 9 role because it just worked. Like, the fluidity was very, very good. The interchanging of positions, like Cole Palmer being as involved as he was, it was just brilliant. But I think, to be honest with you, it feels like a bit of a mistake to play that, and I do kind of want to see Jackson and Broja play more often. And for me, like, I love the way that Broja plays. I think if he's fit, he's got to be up there. And, you know, again, Jackson, while he's missed lots of chances, he's got in right areas, and his pace is so destructive. I think it would be a mistake not to play an out-and-out number 9, and I'm going to be really interested to see how Pochettino sets up in the next few games, and whether he persists with this false 9 setup. I'll tell you what as well, context is everything here, right? It feels like a loss because of the way that the game went. But really, before the game, if you ask most sane, realistic Chelsea fans, a draw would have been a fantastic result. But it does still feel like a turning point at Chelsea, and I'm going to explain a few reasons why. I think we know now that we can mix it against very, very tough opposition. I mean, look, they just beat Man City, Arsenal. They're not a walkover as a team at all. And look, we made silly errors that they caused, but, you know, we're making them. And so if we just stamp out those silly errors and, you know, close out the games in the way that I've just said, I think we can get right up the league, and maybe Champions League is potentially possible, especially when you look at the momentum that we're building now. You know, look, 4 games unbeaten. I can't remember the last time that happened in the Bowley era, to be honest with you. And so we've got to take that momentum now and move it into our next set of games. And again, it's all about managing adversity and working through some of the problems that we have. You know, we've got an immense amount of injuries. Against Arsenal, we didn't have a number 9. We didn't really feel impacted up front at all. We got 2 goals. You know, we scored against one of the, if not the best defence in the league, if you're looking at it on paper, if you're judging by the stats. And also, we were missing our 2 best fullbacks. Can you imagine at the end of last season if we'd lost out on Chilwell and Reece James? I mean, we saw it. We saw how far we capitulated because we're missing those amazing players. And yet, the way the boys are shaping up now, it doesn't make as much of a difference anymore. Cucurella looks like a man and a player reborn. And Reece James, while he came on, you know, he's gotten very, very adequate backup in Malagusto. And I thought that he was absolutely brilliant. So it shows that we've got a bit of a squad now. And regardless of how young they are, we know that players can come in and fill in. And they are a decent enough quality to get results against some of the top 6, which, you know, really we need to be getting as many points off as we can if we want to get right up there and finish in the top 5 by the end of the season. Talking about how we were shaping up at the end of last season with the fullbacks, I have to say the energy, the personnel, the intensity of the club, it just feels like chalk and cheese. It is so different now. And it just hasn't felt this way since Clearlake have taken charge at all. And that's why I feel that there is some green shoots here, some momentum that we've got to take forward because of the result. And while it feels incredibly depressing and negative because of the way it happened, I thought the performance and the way we played, and Poch said this in his post-match interview as well, the way we played was so encouraging. But look, I want to know what you think, guys. Do you think it was a good performance? Are you happy with how we played? And also, do you agree with me that you think it's a bit of a turning point for Chelsea? So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think. And if you enjoyed this video, please do hit the like button and subscribe. It would mean the world to me if you did. And if you want to support me, head over to Aveste, the home of independent streetwear. The link is in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again very soon.